All right, now we're going to get into more of the specifics about solid figures. The next 4 lessons focus on surface area of different shapes. And then after that, we're going to work our way into volume. So the first shape today, we're only talking about prisms. So you need to understand the difference between a prism and the other shapes as we get to those. So what makes a prism different is a prism is a polyhedron that has 2 polygon bases. Those have to be the same shape. So it has 2 polygon bases, and the lateral faces are all rectangles. So 2 of them can be any matching shape, but then the rest of the sides will be rectangles. So we name a prism by the type of base that it has. And how you're going to know where the base is you have to look for the 2 polygons that are congruent and parallel to each other. So you really need to be very careful with that, is that they're going to be the shapes that aren't rectangles, unless everything is a rectangle, but that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the other shape in the picture to determine where the base is, and I'm going to highlight those every time. Then we have 2 different areas we're going to look at. The lateral area would be the area of all the lateral faces, which means we're not including the bases. That would be all the rectangles. And then the surface area is really what our goal is today. The surface area is the area of all of the surfaces, so all of the faces, which is the lateral area plus the area of the bases. So if you look at these 2 examples, we're just going to practice naming them, which means we need to be able to locate where their bases are. So the bases, again, are the 2 parallel congruent shapes. So we're just going to say, in this particular one, that these 2, that's the first thing that popped out at me. It won't always be the bottom, so you need to be careful about that. Though if those are the bases, and I think about what shape that is, this is a rectangle, which means this is what we call a rectangular prism. In the next example, if I'm looking at the shapes, this one has a shape that's not a rectangle. So that's what we need to focus in on when we're looking for the bases. This is not a rectangle, and this is not a rectangle, which means those 2 are the bases. So if I look at what kind of shape that is, that's a triangle, which means this is a triangular prism. Okay? So a little bit more practice with that. We want to give the mathematical name of this shape over on the right. So first thing I want to do is I want to highlight the bases. The bases are this shape and this shape because it's the one that's not a rectangle. So it's this shape and this shape. You just have to name that shape then. That has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. So that we call a hexagon. So this would be, you just turn it into an adjective. This is a hexagonal prism. What kind of figure is each shape? We just answered that. Each shape is a hexagon. And then what kind of figure is each lateral face? So we talked about this term on the last page, but the lateral face is the one that is not all the things that are not bases. So it's like this guy here, and this guy here, and this guy here. For a prism, the lateral faces will always all be rectangles. There would be 6 rectangles along the outside of it. And then we want to know how many lateral faces does it have. I just gave you that answer. That because the hexagon has 6 sides, that means that there are 6 rectangles. And then we want to name a lateral edge. So the lateral edge is anything that connects the 2 bases together. That's what we call a lateral edge. So one of them could be FL. We could also do CI over here. EK. And then there's actually 3 more correct answers. DJ, AG, and BH would all be lateral edges. So now we're going to get into the math part of today, which is actually finding the surface area. So for a prism, if you thought about, for instance, this first one, this rectangle, if I want to find all the surfaces, you technically could find all 6 surfaces individually and add them all up, but there's a shorter formula, which is what we're looking at the top, It says you can find the lateral area, which would be all the rectangles in the picture that aren't the bases, everything that's not a base, by doing the perimeter of whatever the base is times the height. So we need to talk about what those letters mean. I'm going to label this. P is the perimeter of the base. H is the height, which I need to give you a different definition for. The height is going to be the line that connects the bases. It's that lateral edge. But that's always where the height will be. It won't always be up and down, so I need you to be very careful about that. And then the other thing we need to get the whole surfaces is we would need the area of the bases, which we call 2b because there's two bases. And then notice this is a big capital B, so I need you to get in your head that that means the area of the base. It's not a little b like when we do the area of a triangle and it's 1/2 BH, which is base times height. This is now a big B. Big B means you have to find the area of the base. So if you look at number 1, I'm actually just going to write out, since we know it's a prism, I'm going to write down the letters we need to find. We need to know P, we need to know H, and we need to know big B. In order to find those, I do need to decide which shapes I'm going to call the bases, so I always highlight those first. So looking at number 1, I would highlight the bottom and the top. For this particular one, you could do the left and the right, or the front and the back. These have more than just one pair of sides that are parallel and matching. But I'm going to go with the top and the bottom. You will get the same answer if you picked a different pair. But you need to focus in on that particular pair. And I'm actually going to draw that shape outside of the triangle, as we're looking at this rectangle. And I know this side is 12 and this side is 5. So the perimeter of that rectangle, you've got to go back a little bit here. To find the perimeter, we have to do 2 times the length plus 2 times the width, which is going to be 2 times 12 plus 2 times 5. That is 24 plus 10, so the perimeter is 34. H is the line that connects the two bases together. It's also the number we haven't used yet, so you can kind of keep track that 8 is important. So that's going to be 8. And then big B, I have to find the area of the base. I'm looking back at that purple shape, and that's what I need to find the area of. Since it's a rectangle, we've got to think of the appropriate formula. That's length times width. So then that's going to be 12 times 5, which is 60. And then to find the surface area, we are just going to plug into the formula. It's going to be the perimeter, 34, times the height, 8, plus 2 times big B, which was 60. And you do need to follow your order of operations here. Make sure you multiply before you add. So you get 272 plus 120, which is 392. And then we'll put units on here, centimeters. And because this is area, it's going to be centimeters squared. All right, let's take a look at number 2. So the first thing I want to do in number 2 is identify what shape is the base. Again, base does not mean bottom. Base means you have to find the shape that you have 2 of that are parallel to each other. So there's lots of rectangles in this picture, but that's not going to be the base because we have these triangles here that we have 2 of. Those are automatically going to be the base. The other shapes are the lateral faces. They're all rectangles. So the rectangles in the picture, if there's something that's not a rectangle, that's what you want to pick as the base. So then I'm going to write down what we need to find. We need to find P, we need to find H, we need to find B for that shape. So I'm going to draw out that triangle. And we know this is 5 and 12. And the first thing it says I need to find, P, means I need to find the perimeter of that shape. But we have a problem. I don't know what this side is right now. So we are going to need it to find the perimeter, because perimeter means add up all the sides. So I'm going to call that X. And we're going to have to go back to chapter 8, and we're going to have to use Pythagorean theorem to find that. So we're going to do 5 squared plus 12 squared equal to x squared. Make sure you're putting the hypotenuse as the x. And then that's going to be 25 plus 144 equals x squared. 169 equals x squared. And take the square root. You get x equals 13. So that's now what that side is. Erase again. And now to find the perimeter for a triangle, perimeter is just a plus b plus c. If you went back to when we learned that back in chapter 1, we just add up the 3 sides. So you're just going to do 5 plus 12 plus 13. Those are the 3 sides. And you end up with 30. H, remember, is the line that's connecting the 2 bases. So this is going to be the 4, the number we haven't used so far in the problem yet. That's going to be the height. Because if you imagine putting that prism on the triangle side, that's how tall that would be. And then big B means I need to find the area of the base, which is the purple shape, that triangle. So you need to make sure you're using the formula specific to that shape. So it's going to be 1/2 BH since it's a triangle. And the base and the height are the 2 that made the right angle. So we're going to use the 5 and the 12. And that's half of 60, which is 30. And then we're just using the formula to find the surface area. It's P times H plus 2B, because there's 2 bases that are each 30. And then multiply first 120 plus 60. We get 180 inches squared. All right, this last one. Again, the first thing you need to do is identify what shape the base is. We have these unique shapes right here. So this triangle is the base. I like to draw that outside of the shape so I can focus in on it to help answer the question. So this triangle is our base right now. And we need to find P and H and big B. So P would be the perimeter of that shape. Now this one is different than the last one. In number 2, it was a right triangle. This now has the tick marks on it, which means this is an equilateral triangle. So since this is an equilateral triangle, to find the perimeter, we can just fill in the other sides. So if one side's 4, these other 2 are going to be 4. And that means that the perimeter is just 4 plus 4 plus 4, which is 12. The height is the line that's connecting the 2 triangles together. That's going to be 12. And then to find big B, we have to think about the fact that this is an equilateral triangle and use that special formula. It's going to be side squared radical 3 over 4. And the side is 4. So that's going to be 4 squared radical 3 over 4. Which is 16 radical 3 over 4, and you get 4 radical 3. So then to find the surface area, I'm going to write the formula out since we don't have it on this page. It's PH plus 2B. That's going to be 12 times 12 plus 2 times 4 radical 3. We get 144 plus, you can multiply those outside numbers. 2 times 4 is 8. But then I need you to be careful here. The 144 doesn't have a radical 3. The 8 does have a radical 3, so you cannot combine any further. We're going to stop right here and leave this as our answer. It's 144 plus 8 radical 3 meters squared. Okay, so there's a couple problems for you to try on Class Kick, if you could try those, and then you have just a few problems for homework tonight just to get a little bit of practice in with these new shapes. Okay? Good luck, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.